In this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and cover some photo collage techniques in Photoshop. First thing you need to do is go ahead and go into Canvas and download this collageimages.zip and then go ahead and extract it. Once you have it unzipped, go ahead and with nothing open in Photoshop, go to your folder, select the first photo, Shift, select the last photo, and go ahead and drag those straight into Photoshop. And what that's going to do is open every single one of those images for you. It makes it a little bit easier as you're trying to create some of these collage effects. And I've given you a lot of different types of images to play with, so you can create a image and collage that is suitable for what you want to do. Alright, so let's go ahead and go File, New. And we're going to go ahead and start with a 9x9. And this one we're going to make a little bit smaller than we do a lot of other stuff. We're actually going to do it in pixels. We want to do it as a 900 by 900, and I like to do everything in 300. And we're going to go ahead and say create. So this is the 100% size. It's not very big. Let's go ahead and do a file, save as, first initial, last name, then call it 9 image collage. Make sure you're putting it into your folder that is the right folder, and push save. And go ahead and I've got saved as a PDF. You want to save it as a PSD. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is let's go to this background layer and unlock it. We want to fill it with black. We fill it with black in order to make it easier to see what we're doing going forward. So let's go to Edit and come down to Fill, and the contents will be black, and say OK. So now we've created a black background. So the next thing we're going to do is create our tic-tac-toe masks that need to go on top of here. So we're going to go ahead and grab our rectangle tool, and we want to, instead of rectangle tool, we want to create a shape, and we want to go ahead and the width is going to be 300 and our height is going to be 300. And if we go ahead and click, it'll say, do you want to make this? And I'll say, yes, I do. And because my fill was set as red, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and align this and move this up over to the corner. So now I can go ahead and basically just make copies of this as I go along. So with my move tool selected, I'm going to take my Alt and drag it right next to it until it snaps next to it. I'm going to click, I'm going to Alt, I'm going to drag. So now I've got that first row, and if you go over to your layers, you can now see that each one is a separate image. I'm going to go ahead and grab my move tool, and I want to grab all those except this layer 1. So I go ahead and hit Control and layer 1, and let's go ahead and right click and duplicate layers. And now I can take that next set of 3 and pull it straight down. Now while those are still selected, I can do a right click, duplicate layers again, drag it straight down, and now I have all 9 boxes already filled out for me. So that's what I need in order to create the different masks that we're going to put those into. Let's go ahead and let's go to the top rectangle. And now we've got all those together. Let's go ahead and add borders to these to make it a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and select a shape layer. So let's go ahead and select this top one. Let's go to right click, blending options, right here at the top. And we want to go ahead and choose stroke. So we'll open up the stroke menu. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that your position is inside. So it's actually putting it inside. If you do outside, it's actually going to cover each other up. So you want to make sure it's inside. Go ahead and choose your color. I'm going to go ahead and choose, I'll choose a green this time. And you can choose the size. So I'm going to say yes to OK to my color, and I can make it smaller, so I'll make it 5 and say OK. The next thing I'm going to do is do a right click on here, and I want to, on the top one, do the copy layer style. I want to click on my rectangle one, shift click all the way down to my bottom. So I'm selecting all the boxes. I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to hit paste layer style. And now every single one of my boxes went ahead and has all of these squares on them, which makes life a lot easier. So next thing you're going to do is start adding the pictures. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my pictures, one of my images. I'm going to go ahead and grab this kind of swampy thing. I'm going to grab my background layer. I'm going to drag it up into my collage. And it's a lot easier when you do this if you select the box you want to fill before you drag it in, so you know where you're going to actually be putting it. So we want to fill this one, so it'll automatically select that layer over on the side here. I want to put the image above that layer. I want to make sure that I'm actually physically sitting above that layer. And I can use my transform controls, bring it down a little bit because I know it's going to be way too big. Hit enter. Now on my layers, I'm going to right click, and I want to go ahead and create clipping mask. And see, now it automatically is within that single image. And I can use my move tool within there and adjust it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pick another photo. This time I've got kind of a beach. So I'm going to grab my beach, grab it up here, bring it into my collage. And I didn't do what I was supposed to do and select the right square to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it down, because your image needs to be above the layer that you want to put it on. So once again, we're way too big. I can hit my Shift Alt and shrink it all at once. Now I know I'm going to put it down here. I'm going to do my right click, or transform, enter, right click, create clipping mask. So now I've got that one. This time I'm going to do it right. This time I've got my box selected, so my layer is selected. I'm going to go ahead, let's grab another image, drag it up, and bring it down. Now this one is ginormous, so I'm going to control minus out, and you can see how you've got the transform controls that are way bigger than your image. I'm going to hit my Shift Alt, shrink it down before I need to do it. Control plus and blow it back up again. And then I'm going to go ahead and apply my transformation with an enter, right click, and create clipping mask. So that's how you go ahead and fill each of these squares with a separate image. After you do that, you can go ahead and create a filter after you've got all 9 of them done. So maybe these 3 pictures definitely look really different. So we can go ahead and add what's called an adjustment layer to the top. So we're going to click on my top layer. I'm going to go up here to adjustments. I'm going to go ahead and grab the one called curves, which is the 3rd one in. And I can play with, I can pull this down so I can see a little bit more. You can play with curving the whole thing, or you can curve just certain channels. So I'm just going to curve the red and see how we can kind of create a similar look and feel like a filter. You can change that around over your entire image. So once you've got that done and you've applied your filter, we're going to go to Edit and Duplicate. Here we go. Where'd it go? We're going to image and duplicate. And then we're going to save the duplicate. So first initial, last name, 9, what do we call it? 9 image collage, flat. And say OK. We do not want to duplicate merge layers only. So we want OK. So now we've got the whole thing again. We're going to go up here into our layer and flatten image. And now we've got this as one single image, which makes your life a little bit easier when you're trying to do things like put it in your publication or not have to work with all the layers. But you can always go back to your original and change out those photos and make it something else if you want to. And you'll go ahead and turn in that flat one. Alright, so that's one style of template. Another style you can come up with is a matte collage. So let's do File and New. We're going to go ahead and do Print. We want to do Letter. And we want to do Inches, and we want to do Portrait. Or we could do Landscape. Let's do Landscape instead. And say Create. So now we've got this white piece of paper. What are we going to do with it? Let's do File, Save As. And let's go ahead and call it first initial, last name, and matte collage, and .psd. Make sure you're saving it in the right folder and hit save. Alright, next thing we're going to do is drag some guides along. So let's go ahead from our horizontal. Let's drag and take one down to 0.25. Click and hold. Take one down to 0.5. Drag and hold all the way down to 8. And drag and hold all the way down to 8.25. Then let's add some verticals. Vertical, we're going to put one at 0.25. We're going to put one at 0.5. We're going to go ahead and put one all the way down here at 10.5. And one at 10.75. This makes it a little bit easier for you to line up what you're doing. So let's go to our Layers panel. We want a new layer. So hit your new layer. We want to go ahead and create a rectangle marquee. And we want to go ahead and put that in between on this outer margin for the rectangle marquee. And then let's go to Edit and Fill. Let's make it black and say OK. And let's deselect, which is Control D. So now we've created kind of the mat that's we're going to cut now pieces out of this in order to see. So let's go ahead and go to our rectangle marquee. Style, we want fixed size. For the width, we want to go ahead and put in 800. For the height, let's go ahead and put 2000. And then when we click in here, click at the top, it's going to give us that fixed size right there. And I can go ahead and hit delete, and it's going to go ahead and take that part out. I can then go ahead and add my next size, or my next part that I want to have not showing. Now if you want to bring them in closer, make sure you adjust it before you create your mat. So you could create a lot of different ways of doing this. You can freehand select it, so do normal, escape, Control D, and you can create your own boxes and delete. So what you're basically doing is making the mat that all your photos are going to go into. Alright, from there, let's go ahead and deselect. Let's go ahead and grab an image. So we already did that one. I'm going to go ahead and grab this life preserver, drag it up into my matte collage. This time I want my image to come in underneath my photo because I want to actually mask it behind. So I'm going to grab that photo. I'm going to go ahead and transform it or move it depending on what you need to do. I'm going to hit enter, and you'll see I've got a little bit overhanging into this other image, and I don't want that. So what I can do is just take my rectangle marquee, draw a rectangle about the part I don't want, and hit delete. Then I can go ahead and deselect. Let's go grab another image. So I've got a fish here. Drag it up into my matte collage. And this one doesn't fit super well, so it depends on how you want to create those what kind of shapes you want to go ahead and create. I'm going to hit enter and bring it in. And I've got, once again, some pieces hanging out. I'm going to grab that rectangle marquee. And because my mat is on another layer, it's not affecting the black part. So then once you go through, you can always go through and decide, I don't like the black. I really want to make the black something else. So go ahead, choose that layer. And you can always go ahead, let's choose another color. Maybe I'm going to pull a color out of my image here. Say OK. Then I can take my paint bucket, deselect what I've got there, and I can repaint that mat into something else. You could also decide to, maybe you want to make the very back a black. So you've got a lot of different options. Within here you can go to your effects, you can go to a stroke, and see how you can now add, let's add a purple stroke to make it really obvious. Come on. A big fat stroke that's inside. You can try moving it, you can center it. You can move it outside, and we lose the one on the outside because technically it's putting the stroke around the extra. So you've got a lot of different options in playing with this type of style of photo collage.